Yeah, so welcome back to this tutorial series on Spring Boot 4. So today we want to check on versioning in Spring Boot 4. So we want to do versioning to see how it's implemented in the new version of Spring. So remember this app that we had on our previous tutorial. Let me make it a bit bigger for you guys to see. Yeah. So this is what we had. We had a running app on version on CRUD app, which was still running. So right now what we want to do is we want to implement the versioning. So previously we were just doing we called the API by doing this. So we have this in our controller, we have this v1, so we were just calling our API using API slash v1 and then slash blah blah blah, and then it could give us the list of students and stuff like that. So this is what now we want to do away with, this static versioning, and then we see the ways of versioning. So a couple of ways that we can do this, so I'll just put some comments here. So we can do this in many ways. So the first way is using the query param. Secondly, we can use path segments. That's another way of doing API versioning in Spring Boot 4. Then also we can use request headers. To do the same, and then we can finally use media types, media type params to do that. So you can embed in any of these, but I'll show you a couple of them. So let's start from let's do query param first. So in query param, let's say you're having two versions of breaking changes in your API. Let's say this API for all students, that you're getting all the students. Let's say we have added the age in the DB for the column. In this model for students, you've just added a new one for age. So, but we want to version it to be available in version 2. So, so before even we do that, so there are two ways we can do versioning. First is we can do it through this web config that we started to create on the other tutorial. I'll show you how to use that. But for now, let it remain commented out. And then the second option is you can use also these other comments that we commented out in here on the properties file. So two things, you can use properties file, or you can write your own configuration bin to just do all those configuration. So let me show you how we do this now. So let's say now we have this student with the new student of version 2. So I'll just say, I just copy this and say I have the student for version 2. Let's say I have a student, but a student model for version 2. So I'll create that one there, and then I'll say this one. Now we have added stuffs like we have added age, maybe say age integer. What else can we add on the student? Maybe let's say we have added even also location, so that we know where the student is coming from. So we have added location as a string. Yeah, so these two items that you have added on the new model now. So this is version 2. So we'll need to do the same for also the repo. We just do repo version 2, so that it will pull from the second model. And then these models, remember, being an entity now, you can just reference these to, let's say, the table name, which is, let's say, students. So we just want to maintain one table name. We don't need two table names. So you just say student. This one will reference student, but we have added two nullable fields of age and location. And also on this first one, we'll just say we wanna have this one on the entity name, which is student. Sorry, this should be table name. I think table name, yeah. So table name will remain to be student. Entity will let it now just name it the way it wants to name it. So here I'll just do the same. Just say here is that's the table, and then the entity, you can just call it version 2 student, or stuff like that, or just leave it as that. So this is okay. We want to share the same table, but for version 2, the table has 2 more columns. So in here on the version 2 repository, what we just need to do is to point it to version 2 of the model or DTO. And also the same, if you're using the student record and maybe you want to create another one for version 2, you can still do the same. Now out of that, you go back to your main method now. So here you are calling version 1. So we want to create the second function here. That is the get student for version 2 here. And then we'll say now this version 2, we want to tag it. But then remember, so we'll tag it with repo, we'll give it repo 2, but we haven't created this, so we'll just inject this pretty quickly. From here, we'll just replicate this and then inject this student repo version 2, and then inject it using the constructor injection, and then here we go. So the model also which will be returned here will be student version 2. Yeah, so that's it. So we have created now the new version, but this one you need to specify and say probably this one is this one, let's say maybe the version of the API is version 2.0, and maybe say the first one here it's version, let's say 1.1.0. So you can use either version 1 or 1.0, whichever way that you want to use it. And then on our configuration now, this is where now we activate all those stuffs that we're doing. So we'll just uncomment this and say now we wanna say we use the MVC API versioning, and then we say it's enabled, we put it to true, and then we say now use so our first one was query param. Let me see if that was our first one. Yeah, so query param. So we'll say the first one just use query param, and then the param that we want to use is API version. This is the name of our param, and then we have the default version will default to 1. And also in here we can say we can strictly also say that we want to specify the exact versions that are supported, so that we don't want to send a version that is not there. So we can say supported version is 1.0, 2.0 or 2.5 or whichever, and then 3.0. So any other thing that is supplied which is not that, it should be able to invalidate it. Yeah, so let's run this first as you can continue. So as you run, you see any breaking changes. So there are no breaking changes, but remember, even if there are no breaking changes, we still have this one version here parameterized. So two things, you can pick all these and take it down, and maybe say something like, maybe you want a version 1 students, you pick these, you put it here, and then you say the name of this is version 1 student, something like that. That's still possible. But now how I want to do it is I just want to say remove that version there and just have it coming along here. And also here you can just add these to make it look much sweeter, and then we say this one is version student. Yeah, and then so we'll say here on the guest mapping, we'll just say remain it like that, but then we'll now specify the version. So if we rerun this and try to call our endpoint, let us see what will happen. Let the program first run. So let's just see what will happen if we try to hit version 1 student. Yeah, so we'll get a bad request because this endpoint now no longer exists. And also if we do like this, we'll still get a bad request. So what is requesting is it needs us to add a param, which is the API version, and then we say version, probably an existing version or an allowed version. But now this, remember this param, we gave it a name. So we'll just come here and grab this name that we gave our param here. We say we gave it our API version here. Then we just place it there, and then we call it. So in there, we can now get version 1.0 is this. So this is correct. You have now successfully called this, and also you can do some logging. Let me just close all of this so that you can just go step by step. So you can still do some logging here and say, let's say I want to just say this is version 1.0, and then we'll just do the same for, I will just grab this and do the same for version 2.0 to just specify that we are currently running version 1 or version 2. So if you do that, you'll see from our program, let me make it a bit smaller. Yeah, so you'll see in here, if I try to now execute our command, or rather call our API, you'll find that now we'll get something like version 1.0 is running. So how do we execute version 2.0 is by now changing our version on our parameter and saying 2.0. So if you call it like this, it will give you now plus the age, and you remember we added the age and location, but for this one they're just null. So this has already loaded the second version of our API, and if you go here, you'll find should be having something like version 2. Yes, so here is the version 2, but remember all those items are null. So that's how you version first. So let's do the same for editing, so that we edit some students here. So let's say we are having a post here and we want to probably post for version 1. Let's say we want to create a post for version 1. So we'll just say version and then say 1.0. So if you notice, if we try to, let's say we run this and then we try a version that is not specified, let's say version 2.5. Let's see if that one is, wait a minute. This one is loading up. Let's see if we say 2.1 or another version out of scope. So you'll see it will give you a bad request, because this one we have specified that in here on the application JSON, we have specified that these are the only versions that we allow for now in this API. Yeah, and this default means if, for example, we default this to 2.2.0, for example, it will mean if we don't specify a version, let me just rerun it. If we don't specify a version, it means it will just take that as the default version. Yeah, so that's how you implement the first param. So on this second one, I'll want to implement using a different version. Let's say now we do the second option of using now the path segment to do this, or rather, let me just complete this. So say this is version 1, and then I want version 2 of the post, so that we post a student. So I'll just say this is version 2, and then this will go to version 2, student repo version 2. So just renaming these items to be a version 2, call version 2, dot save. This one needs to be student dot version 2. So if we try this out to save a student given the version 2, so we'll try the post. So that's one of the ways that you can implement this. We'll also try the second option, the second way of doing it. So let's just try this again. Yeah, so in here we'll just find that now it has created with the age that we've entered here in our request body. So in our request body, you need to kind of now put the age, and maybe you can say add even the location. Let's say the location is Abuja. So if this student is coming from Abuja, let's say this is the location now. Still, it should be able to fill out and then say this Rahma, then this Rahma Fian from Abuja. So this will give us this, and it will say active now, the age is this, and then the location is Abuja. And then if you now enlist them also on version 2, so on version 1, you won't be able to get the age. Yes, you get the student because they are on the same table. So you can just get Rahma here, Abuja, but now you'll not have the age and the location. But if you tap on version 2 of the API, now we'll get Rahma, but plus the location and plus the age. So that's how we use the first one. So let's quickly go to the second one. So the second one is path param. So this is whereby you wanna specify your API within the path. Maybe you wanna say the initial way that we had v1. But now instead of having this one, you want to parameterize this. So you can do this one within the class. It will be much easier, or maybe do it within each of the API by giving it a name here. You can just say a name and then you give it the parameter. But now, so what I want to do is for these ones, I'll wanna put it within each method, so that I show you also the second option. So in here we can say we grab up to here, and then you just come here and say, for example, the get mapping for the first student will be this, and then so this is the version, but now the path name will be this, and then here now this is where now we want the parameter to go. So here is what we want to say. We want the parameter, the version of the API should be there, and then so we'll do the same for the rest of the 3 APIs. So let's say also this one you wanna have it that way, the version in here, then call it there. Then also for this one, you can say you want the version here and then call it there. Then for the final one, this way, then we call it there. So this version now, it means in our API now, if we call it, we'll need to insert this version. So let's see first this one, because initially we had this, like we had told it to use the query parameter. And then so in here we can now say we don't want you to use the query parameter, but rather we want you to use something like what did you call it? We call it this path segment. So you can say just use path segment, and then in this path segment maybe you wanna say pick the first. I think this is the index of the path that of the segment of the path that you wanna pick. So it means after the API, just pick the second segment, which is this version here. So if we say v1.2 or we say 1.2 or we say 1, all of them should be able to default to the first API. Yeah, so after that, we can now reload this. So let me remove these ones that you're not using. Just comment them out, because I'll upload this program as it is for you to play around with it. Yeah, so if we rerun that function, let's rerun it. What's happening here? API version, use default version, path segment 1. I think there's an issue there. Let me see. You don't need to have commas in our YAML. Yeah, so that's our problem. So let me see. So if we right now go back to the first one and try to call it like that, we'll get a bad request, because now we are not doing this, but rather we are not doing the query parameter, but we are doing API slash the version here. So if I say version 1.2, it will tell me version 1.2 not available. So let me say version 1.2, let me see not found. So API, let me see where we are doing a mistake. So this is API, and then we have this version 1 slash students, then this is version 1.1, and then needs to be there. But let me see what I'm doing wrong. Let's grab it in a second. So for some reasons on setting this path we couldn't get, so let's just do the normal way how it's supposed to be done. Instead of trying out this, let's just do the right way. We say in here, we just put it on here. For some reason I think this one has failed to work. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. You can put down there in the comment where we went wrong on this, and then we can just say, just clean out this and say, yeah, let's now try to reload our app. Let's now say reload this, and then just do it like this, and then you test it again. So with the same app URL version, good, it's giving us. So let's try with v1.1, it will give us v1. If we try with v2.1, it will give us 2. All right, if we try 3, though we don't have an endpoint for 3, so a bad request, and so forth and so on. So if we try to go into those ones that we don't have, it will still give us the same error. So this is how we use the second option, that is for the path segment. You just specify this is the path that I want to use, and then I need to have a version here as my variable. Then this variable now I'll pass per function on what exactly each function I should execute. And then on our YAML file, we just specify the segment. So this one also needs to be an integer. So this specify the first. So in this path, and I think that's why it was failing, it will take this one as index 0, then this one as index 1. So if you're having multiple, let's say you're having another here, say location or localization, you'll say now this one will be index 1, and then this one will be index 3. So you'll just say at index 3, that's where I wanna put my version, and then that should work for you.